Writing Out Loud, a program designed to explore in-depth interviews with writers to hear that words have voices.
Hello everyone, I'm Teresa Miller and welcome to Writing Out Loud. My very special guest today is Oscar-winning actress Estelle Parsons. Well, I never thought this would happen, Estelle. I never thought this would happen. I was reading Barbara Walters' memoir the other day, and she mentioned that you'd actually been one of the first women on the Today Show.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I was in politics at home. I was the youngest person, the first woman elected to office in my town. I was going to have a political career, but somebody left his Cadillac to be repaired in Marblehead, who lived in New York, so I drove it down to New York for him. I went to see a friend at NBC who was married to my college roommate's sister, and he said they're starting a new TV show in the morning. There was only TV at night then. It was about 1950. So I went to see this guy, and we hit it off, and he said, send me a resume. I didn't know what a resume was. So I went home to Marblehead and wrote a single type page about my whole life and sent it back to him. And he hired me. There were 8 of us who put that show together. And, of course, I realized later the reason probably I got hired and he brought someone from California was nobody was interested. The people who worked in nighttime television were not interested in going in the daytime show because they thought nobody would watch in the morning.
Well,
so 8 of us put it together and hired Dave Garraway and the other people. And the news department was involved, and we were off and running. So I started as a production assistant, then I became a writer and a feature producer, and I did all the literary, all the books. I did all the fashions, all the books, I don't know what, anything that came along. And then one day we were in, we really had a working newsroom. Everybody who worked on the show was actually in the show. So if a news break came in on the wires, James Fleming would just take it off the machine and talk about it. I mean, in those days, people in television knew what they were talking about. They didn't have a piece of paper that someone else gave them. So it was a very exciting pioneer time, and Dave walked over to my desk one day and said, you know more about this than I do, so talk about it. So I did. I'd been in the theater all my life. I was not new to performing, so to say, and I did it. The producers liked it, and from then on I was doing stories for them. I was an on-air reporter, and then when Kefauver was in the New Hampshire primary trying to run for president, then they asked me to do that. So I was actually the first woman who got into any kind of news reporting on a network, because the news department was totally men, and they were nice men, but they were totally the old-fashioned newsmen,
I can imagine.
And Jerry Green turned out to be a novelist, actually. He was head of the news department for a while. So they sent me out as part of the political team, and that was... There was a very good news person woman on radio, Pauline Fredericks, at the time. They would not hire her in television. It was before women's lib, so nobody cared much about this. This was the world, if you're a woman, you made your commitment to what you were going to do, and you strived. It's not strove, is it? It's strived to do what you wanted to do, so that's the way we early women were. We weren't expecting any help from anybody, and we didn't get it, heaven knows. So I just kind of slid in there. And Barbara was on the local show, and she wanted, not only Barbara, but the number of young women that I knew came and said, how did you get this job? And of course I had no interest in it. It was my 9-to-5-er, and I was singing with bands on the weekend. And
You, for a while, were even enrolled at Boston University studying law.
I went a year to law school, yeah. Harvard didn't take women, and my father and grandfather were lawyers. They'd been to Harvard, and Harvard didn't take women, so I went to Boston University, but I was interested in legal theory and constitutional law. It's absolutely fascinating stuff. the next year, Harvard took women and accepted me. I did very well in my LSATs. You can imagine that because of my acting work as well. So they took me at Harvard, but they said, no, you have to start in the first class. We're only taking women in the first class. I've been a year to law school. That didn't cut any ice there, so I thought, get me out of this profession. I thought, gosh, if I really succeed in this field, I'm going to have a very lonely life, which women did, and still not younger women, but the women that I know who did succeed in the law, because I know there are only a few of them in New York, in my generation, have had lonely lives in that sense. They're not part of the old boys club. The old boys club that I know in New York has one token woman who I think drinks a little too much. But why shouldn't she, right?
Right, absolutely.
So it was, the commitments for a woman in those days were a little different than they are now. But I thought acting is perfect because I'm going to compete against other women. I'm not competing against a lot of men. But these days, men play women's roles, so...
it cuts
so I don't think I've competed against any yet.
You studied with some of the all-time great acting teachers. Who had the most profound influence on you?
Well, I think Lee Strasberg. I was with him for 20 years, and that was... I was already an actress. I'd worked in a community theater from the time I was 7 till I was 15 and went off to boarding school, and by then I was very cocksure and arrogant because I understood audiences. I knew how to make them laugh. I knew how to make them cry. I mean, that's what it's all about, theater,
Oh, sure.
So I was completely capable of doing good professional work. But I heard that everybody who was anybody in theater was, and that was before TV really got going, but TV was just starting, and in New York. So I knew they were all at the Actors Studio. I read that in the New York Times, so I got myself over there and eventually got in there. And so I spent 20 years in sessions with Lee Strasberg, and that was fantastic. That was a kind of advanced inner work, when you really need deep emotional stuff. I think of him every day with this play. There is a Stanislavskian technique to get the inner work out of your instrument, the emotional stuff out of your instrument that you need to proceed. And so that kind of inner work toughens you up so that you can recall it 8 times a week. If you had to recall some of that stuff 8 times a week in real life, you'd be a little bit cuckoo or take to your bed or something. But there is a technique. Once you're an actress, once you understand how to do theater and you want to use more of yourself is really what happens, and I happen to want to use more of myself. I'm very interested in people's behavior. It's not unlike law, except it's the opposite end of disciplines. One is so intellectually rigid and the other one is so totally emotional.
Well, that's an excellent distinction.
But I'm very interested in using all that deep stuff because it's amazing what you find out about, you always find out stuff about other people, but you find things in yourself, or I have as an actress, that I had no idea were there. Certain abilities, certain, not memories or anything, but just, certain abilities, I guess you would say, emotional abilities that in real life you would not know because you would have no need to know them. But once you start doing a lot of challenging parts, then you need things that you don't know you have, and then all of a sudden you discover they're there and you can use them if you, have the, courage or guts, but if you want to use them. People say sometimes to me, you have so much courage, but I never think of it that way because I really want to explore what's inside me and what's inside other people as well, so.
Even though theater is your first love, you became really famous when you starred with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway in Bonnie and Clyde. What a film. You played the part of Blanche, won an Oscar, Best Supporting
Actress. And hysteric, right?
Yeah, and hysteric. But how did you keep that role, Estelle, Blanche, from being a caricature? Because it would have been really easy with a lesser talent. to let that rain
Oh,
not
that's
be everything that it
interesting.
could be.
That's interesting. I don't know. I was, that's the other important person in my life professionally, maybe more so than Lee, Arthur Penn.
Yes.
I was about 40 when I did that movie, but before then we'd been working in the theater with some, at the Berkshire Drama Festival. He was interested in trying some experimental rehearsal techniques. And so for the first time in my life, even though I'd been acting all the time, I never felt I belonged on the stage. Discovering one's truth is very hard in a rehearsal because people are always getting in the way of your truth and wanting you to do things that aren't truthful. So I worked with Arthur on the stage, and all of a sudden everything came into focus for me, and I thought, oh yeah, I really do belong here, because he was also very involved with your inner stuff coming out, whereas a lot of directors will just shut it off. No, we want to do this, we want to do that. But he was very interested in getting what is unique in each person, because what do you have to offer if it isn't your own unique abilities that nobody else in the world has? No matter how many humans are in the world, nobody else has what you have. So it's important to use that if you really want to, have a good career of discovery and being an artist. So I was working with him on the stage, and he said, we want to read this movie script that I have, and I didn't really want to read it. I have no interest in movies. But then the part looked very, very good, and the rep company that I was about to go with, the guy called up and said, we couldn't get the money up, so we're not, the rep company is gone. So I said to Arthur, well, my rep company is gone, I guess I'll have to do your movie. So I did.
What's your quick take on Warren Beatty?
Oh, he's great. Terribly smart, capable of absolutely anything.
Faye
Just a
Dunaway?
wonderful guy. I love Faye. We've remained friends.
Gene Hackman?
Yeah, Gene, I think I got him that job because Arthur wanted a guy named Dick Bradford, who was also a wonderful character guy, but Dick was busy. So I said, well, Gene and Dusty Hoffman and myself were in a play of Murray Shiskel's at the time. And I said, Arthur, come and see this guy I'm working with, because he's just got all the rhythms I have. It's really funny. He's the only person I ever worked with like that. So he came, and he liked Gene. And Gene wanted to be a movie star. That was a big discussion point for us, because I couldn't understand why he wanted to be a movie star. Why does anybody want to be a movie star? I don't know. Working on the stage for people, hundreds of people, it was great.
There's an intimacy there that you don't do.
Well, you have to have equipment. You get 500, 1,000, in this case, sometimes on this tour, up to 2,000 people, waiting to be entertained by you. That's a major challenge.
Were you as surprised as you seemed when you won the Oscar for Bonnie and Clyde?
Oh, I think so. All those, awards are just... I don't know. Who votes? What do they vote for? They vote for who they like or whatever. They make no sense awards.
Yeah.
I was on the Tony nominating committee for 3 years, so I have an inside look at what those awards turn out to be.
Oh, I bet so. And it would.
So I don't have I don't like awards because I don't know if it gets in the way of your work. I don't suppose it does if you have some integrity. And it is, as it turns out, it is kind of stamp of approval. If people can say to people, well, she won the Academy Award, you sort of think, well, okay, maybe she can act then if she won, what I mean?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, when you go somewhere or whatever, you say to someone, what do you do? Well, I'm an actress, and they just kind of look at you like, oh, what do I say now? What am I going to talk to this woman about? She's probably a noodle head. She probably wants to get me into bed. Who knows what goes into people's minds when they meet an actress. But if you say, I won an Academy Award, then it's a little different. Then they've got to have a little respect for you as an actress.
And you backed it up by getting an Oscar nomination again for
that
Rachel
was nice.
Rachel. That was Paul Newman's directorial debut.
That was, that was terrific.
Did he give you good insights into the character of Colette?
Yeah, that was terrific. We rehearsed that movie like you do a play, 3 weeks on a set in a gymnasium in a school. So by the time we shot the movie, we were deeply into the characters. Most movie people think that's a bad idea. I think in that movie it gave it a certain depth and resilience that were absolutely wonderful. And you know, she had to kiss Joanne, and he said, "Don't play this as a lesbian." I thought, why should he tell me that? Why not let me make my own decisions as I go along with it, since we were having this rehearsal period.
And this is Joanne Woodward, his wife.
Yeah. But I thought it was kind of good, because I don't know where I would have gone on my own path, maybe to the same place. But later on, I thought that was kind of a good idea, because he wanted it to be very open and surprising. He didn't want people watching the movie to think, oh, that one's probably a lesbian. You know?
No,
I guess.
No, exactly.
I don't know why he said that to me. Maybe he had his own difficulties or needs with it, or maybe Stuart, the writer, who's a magnificent screenwriter, Stuart Stern, maybe it was his idea, I don't know. But it worked out well.
And right now, you're starring as Violet in Tracy Letts' August Osage County. You've been
I
in the
didn't
role.
expect to be starring. I thought we were all going to be an ensemble.
Well,
so.
it's that name recognition.
It was
it's that
unsettling.
Oscar.
You've
It's
got
that,
to do it. Yeah.
It's that Oscar. How does the role of Vi stack up against the other roles you've played? Is it the role of a lifetime, or is that too far?
No. They're all different, you know. They're all different. It certainly is I don't know what to say, one of the most demanding. I've done Beckett's Happy Days, you know, where in the first act she's up to her waist in a mound of sand, and the second act up to here, so you can only move your eyes, and the whole second act of that's a bit of a challenge. And I did Miss Margarita's Way, which is a play about political totalitarianism, which is direct to the audience, and they interact, so that's a completely different kind of challenge that a lot of actors really wouldn't want to take on, but that I relished. So, no, and I did a character for Tennessee Williams, the last of the mobile hotshots. That was, his women characters are fantastic, you know, so that was a bit of a challenge as well. I didn't understand that one till about 2 years after it was over. And I was walking along the street, I thought, that's the way to play that part. But, you see, I had played it enough to get a Tony nomination, so I always say actors don't have to know why they're doing anything. They just have to get up there and do it.
Another actress originated the role of Vi on the Broadway stage. Is that hard for you as an actress to come in and make that part your own after someone else's?
Well, I never did that before, but I never actually think about making parts my own. I really am very eager to exploit what the playwright has written, find the person that was in the playwright's brain, like novelists have people in their brains. And my interest is really finding that person. So I just took this play of Tracy's like a Bible, and that play on the page, and myself, just that was all I did. I just put my nose right in that play and tried to play what he'd written. And I'd seen Deanna, so for quite a long time I just thought I was Deanna. You know, in the theater, if something isn't broken, don't fix it. So I'd never replaced someone, but I thought, I've seen it, it works, let me just do what's there, let me fit in. So I used all her costumes and all her movements, and I just did what she did. And I thought I really was her, and then people said to me, no, you're not.
No, I saw both of you. Very, very, very different. Did you go and...
I don't know how it got different. I'm doing the same stuff. Isn't it funny?
Yeah, it's just that personal, that inner work
I
that
guess
you've done that's coming out. Did you go see Felicia Rashad when she
I
placed
did,
you?
yeah. I went because I wanted to look at the costumes, because they said I could have new costumes for the tour. And I didn't know that I wanted new costumes. I didn't really, you know, having replaced like that, I didn't have a picture of... After I'd done it for a year, I didn't have a picture of what it was because I was doing it. So I did go to see her. And that was interesting. She played it very, very differently. Her choices were very different. She chose not to be dynamic. And I don't know, I never talked to her. I don't know if she'd seen Deanna or not, but she chose not to be kind of the raison d'etre for everybody else's activities. And so it was kind of strange. She's a very glamorous, beautiful woman, and I just didn't know why she made that choice to rob herself of her strength. But, you know, that's what happens in plays, everybody. And then you never know when you're an actor. You are your instrument. Mm-hmm. So you never know when your personal things are getting in the way. You know, like I have a lot of trouble with the drug scenes in this play. They turn out to be the most difficult ones and the ones I really hate doing, which is funny. In the beginning, I thought they were released. You know, mm-hmm. Even if I forget my lines, it doesn't matter. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. But then when the sheriff, when we had new actors in, I had a very difficult time doing that scene with a guy who appeared to be very judgmental instead of compassionate to my drug habit. And I realized what a hard time I had doing those scenes. And then I realized just last week that I'm ashamed to appear in public drugged. Like I can practically remember the few times I've been very drunk in public. They're very upsetting to me. Mm-hmm. For reasons, who knows, I don't know. But they're very upsetting to me to appear like that in public. So I was talking to a group of young people last week, and I said, you know, I'm personally ashamed to play those drug parts. I don't want the public to see me drugged. And I said, you know, it's in my head somewhere there and making it very hard to play those scenes. So your person always gets involved somehow. And my person, Deanna's person in certain ways, Felicia Rashad's person in other ways. So we come out with different characterizations, really.
We've talked about working with directors. What about working with playwrights? Because Tracy Letts has been very involved with this play.
Yeah. I always have a better relationship with playwrights than I do with directors. Directors always get in your way somehow when you're an actor. You know, my grandson's in the NFL, and I had dinner with him before they play the Patriots. I hardly ever see him, but and he said, you know, we just hate the coaches. And everybody at the table kind of thought, whoa. And he said, yeah, you know, the players always hate the coaches because we know what's going on. We're out there. We know what's going on, and they don't. And I thought, it's so much like the theater because the director's sitting out there. He or she is never going to get up on the stage and do it. They have no idea what you're going to have to go through. And yet they're telling you what to do, you know. I don't very often like directors much, but I always get along well with playwrights, probably because I'm so busy trying to figure out why they put the words on paper that they put on paper. That's a great fun of being an actress, and particularly with Tracy, who's very into every word meaning exactly what he wants it to mean. Because if you look at the words as an actress, why would that person say that there? And the terrible thing in films and TV is that an actor will say, can we cut this line because I don't get it? But if you're in the theater, you understand the line that you don't get is the line that's going to open a key to the character. If you just keep plugging away day after day, eventually that line that you don't get in the beginning will prove to be the key to what you really need to know to create a well-rounded character. That's one of the big differences between theater and TV and films. TV and films, the script has to be accessible immediately because you don't have 3 weeks of figuring it out. And the writers know that, so they write stuff that right away it'll mean something. You know, if I get a TV or a movie script and I read it and I start crying or laughing, I know it's going to work because it's reached my instrument where it needs to be reached so that I can play a certain character. And if I don't have that response, if I read a TV or a film script and I don't know what's going on, who this person is, I don't do it because you don't have time in TV and film to find out who a person is. And because I'm hard to categorize for some reason, I get a lot of parts that I don't get. I don't understand who they are or what they're doing there. So then I say, no, I'll have to pass on that one.
Well, you've been with Violet a long time. How many performances?
Yeah, over a year and a half.
But is it going to be hard for you to let a role like this go?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I've never done a play this long. Musicals you can do forever, and I have done musicals forever. But plays, I don't know, dry up is the word, but finally there's nothing for you in a play. And that isn't true of this. This is a very rhythmic piece. It really is more like music than other plays. And it seems to be always fresh. He has a very dynamic writing style, and it never gets stale. I've never had a performance where I thought, oh dear. You know, you have to go out there and whack away at it all the time. So I don't think I'd ever get tired of doing it. But there comes a time I know that I need to move on now because I don't find enough. I'm looking for other projects, and I get involved with stuff at home, and I think, what's the matter with me? And then I think, well, I got to get something else to challenge me. I need another big challenge. So I don't think I usually have a mourning period for characters where I have a stomach ache for about a week, and then I get over it. I know I mourn them because they're meaningful to me. I prefer to be somebody else. You know, I don't want to just sort of show something. I really want to be somebody else and not have to think about how very difficult life is to move through. So
we just have about 10 seconds left. I've got to ask you, did you like being Bev on Roseanne?
Oh, I loved it.
Everybody recognizes there's Roseanne's mother.
Yeah, I know. I really loved that. Rosie loved me, laughed at me all the time. All the people she hired were just spectacularly talented. It was great.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your stellar performance in August.
Thank you
incredible.
so much.
It's one of the most wonderful things I've ever seen on stage.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for joining us on Writing Out Loud.